Another basic method to attack the head while you're on your feet is from an underhook. As we had discussed earlier, it's important for me to maintain good head positioning here. Typically I'm going to start that off from here, pull my head in. So I'm going to start with my head into the shoulder and slide it up. That makes it easier to head fight from this position. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try to pull him down because look at the angle he's at. Before, we were kind of facing each other, and so that was a fairly good angle for both to get his head as well as to get his arm. This is a little less favorable of an angle because I have to come all the way out here to try to do that type or get to that same type of position. So I'm not going to get that same type of position. My head is inside here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cup the back of his neck with my palm in this position, and I'm going to tug him down and corkscrew down circularly. Corkscrew down circularly. So from here, and I come this way to get him down to the mat. Now, naturally, if Colby was more upright, that would be a very difficult thing for me to do. But just like we had discussed earlier, there may be other options, and that is, for example, to attack the leg. So, with that principle in mind, and as we're talking about a lot of these attacks to the head, remember to take that into context in terms of what is your opponent's position, because that's going to dictate typically whether you're going to be tending to attack more higher up from his waist up or from his waist down. So I have the underhook, and perhaps Colby started out a little higher up. I might have faked a single and he comes down. Now his head is down. I'm in a very favorable position to keep it coming down. I'm going to palm the back of his neck and the back of his head, and this blocks him if he attacks. I have a block here, okay? My head is in tight too, so I'm in a good position. I'm going to tug him down, circularly, corkscrewing down, and tugging here, and tugging with my underhook from this position here. Again, he'll tend to come down, and probably not all the way for me to score, but enough such that his weight will typically be such that his hands are down, his head is down, his weight is forward, and his hips are up. Again, favorable position for me to try to spin behind ultimately. So I'm in this position. I notice Colby's head comes low. I'm going to cup here, this position here. Now notice, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we stay on the mat, I can transition from here to the head and arm type grip. This will make sense to you as we go over a little bit more on the mat. But again, you can transition from the head to the head and arm, either the bicep head and arm or the head and arm where we actually had a grip on our own hands, back and forth from the mat or from your feet fairly fluidly once you get the idea and the technique down. So if I have an underhook here, and I were to try to come all the way out in front, I will be vulnerable for a couple reasons. For example, as I'm snapping down from this position, I might be vulnerable to a fireman's carry. That's another one.
Underarm spin.
Okay. Similarly, as I'm coming through to the side, I might be vulnerable for Colby to spin underneath my arm to get around. The bottom line is that I don't want to come all the way around because I tend to be vulnerable in that position.